Every generation fears new technology, but ours has started trauma dumping into it.
ChatGPT getting trauma dumped on is so funny because it came into the world thinking it was going to cure cancer or stop climate change. And instead it's out here being like, okay, queen, let's draft a text to your ex that's unhinged.
Welcome to this week's segment where I talk about the age-old Gen Z question. Is ChatGPT ruining our lives? Part 1. This feels familiar. In my previous segment, I talked about how the AI revolution is so much bigger than the Industrial Revolution ever was. But my question is, how big actually was the Industrial Revolution in the broader sense of time? And how far does our fear of new technology go? This is important to investigate as we address if ChatGPT really is the major threat of our lives, or if this is just us taking on our rite of passage in hating the newest innovation. Okay, the way I see it, our grandparents were afraid of us watching too much TV. They told us that our eyes are going to become square and our minds are going to turn to mash.
You know what they say about watching screens?
You'll get square eyes!
Our parents were afraid of us being on our phones too much, and I have quite a few memories, more than I probably should of my mom confiscating my phone and subsequently smashing it because I was talking to someone after bedtime or, doing whatever I shouldn't have been doing. That sounds very strange. I wasn't doing anything weird. Is our new fear how close we're becoming to AI language models and how much of a personal stake we're giving something that isn't human in our life? Or is it a rite of passage to hate on the newest technology? Let's turn back the clock for a moment. A 1955 survey of the effects of television on 10 to 14-year-old children done in Great Britain was used to investigate how many television incidents arose fear and emotional disturbances in its participants. Fear of new technology isn't a new phenomenon. A journal article published in 1961 by A.W. van der Meer explores how new media in the form of information of low-level skills does not constitute an adequate or even particularly worthy education, which we can also look at in parallel with AI language models today as a source of information in defense of AI language models. This is significant because in the 1950s and the 1960s, schools were investigating the technological revolution in terms of how it could benefit the education sector. And when we look at AI, we can establish that it has helped students and high school students with essays, but also I think we can agree that the vast majority of the discourse has been around how AI is replacing our ability to think for ourselves by completing our essays for us and doing all of the manual tasks we used to do for us. So it's interesting to look at the fear that parents had in the 1950s and the 1960s, and the fear that we have of AI today in parallel with that, where we seem to duplicate the fears of the previous decade and previous generation. In an article by W. James Potter called Adolescence and Television Violence, they outline the violent action of children's Sunday morning programs and the rise of violence in the 1960s. There seems to be a maternal or paternal need for every generation to protect the coming generation from whatever the newest technological innovation has been. By 2004, none of this had changed. The only thing is now this fear was being directed towards the newest technological innovation, cell phones. In a book by Adam Burgess, he writes, "One thing was certainly apparent. Anxieties about ultra-high frequency waves or microwaves had not only appeared in an increasing number of societies, but there was a discernible sequence to their development. Cell phone towers were the new objects of concern." During the 90s, numerous lawsuits were filed basically with people claiming that cell phones and cell towers had produced microwaves that caused brain cancers. A lawsuit was filed alleging a brain tumor was caused by radio frequency radiation towards Motorola, another by Nokia, and even Verizon. When we analyze the fears that people had towards cell phones, radio frequency waves, cell towers, they're still very real concerns today. They've kind of dulled down a bit as I think we get more desensitized to whatever the new object is. But I have seen posts about people warning and urging against putting your cell phone in your pants pocket.
I've heard that carrying your phone in your pocket can reduce your testosterone levels and sperm count, and guess what? That is true. The data contained within this meta-analysis and other meta-analyses clearly point out that it can reduce sperm count and maybe testosterone levels significantly, but certainly sperm count and motility significantly.
The constant fear of new technology and new innovation and change in general, the actual fear of change, might also be linked to why we're seeing a resurgence in 90s and early 2000s childhood television programming. If you haven't seen it on TikTok, I have data from Google Trends showing an increasing trend towards low-stim shows for children. So it's almost kind of like we don't get over our fear, we just become desensitized to the object and we get used to it until the next new innovation pops up that we worry about. In a journal article by Marilla Veras called How Humanity Has Always Feared Change, Are We Afraid of Artificial Intelligence? She basically explores fear as a constant companion to innovation. So she outlines 5 major innovations throughout the course of history. And this is very interesting. Okay, so let me start. Basically, number 1, we have writing. Writing is interesting because I'm going to link it to something very intriguing in just a second. But basically, the connection was that in the same way AI is said to lower our cognitive abilities, writing was also a concern as it challenged memory. Like, we don't need to remember it anymore if we write it down. Number 2 is GPS. Number 3, calculators. Like the Industrial Revolution, it streamlined tasks, impacting skills and labor, and again, the fear was that we didn't have to think for ourselves anymore. Number 4, statistical software, same thing as calculators. And then number 5, the Industrial Revolution. This raised fears about human job replacement, very similar to AI, as machines replaced manual labor in the 18th and 19th centuries. Okay, now let's look at the writing revolution, because this is extremely interesting to me. There was basically a fear of memory loss. For as long ago as 5,000 years ago, Socrates warned that writing could weaken memory and genuine understanding. Similarly, today's discussion with AI focuses on whether increased reliance on intelligent systems can erode cognitive abilities such as memory, problem solving, and critical thinking. It's very interesting to me that even 5,000 years ago, when the common person wasn't ordinarily literate and the advent of writing was taking off, it was met with skepticism and philosophical concern. And the same applies to AI-driven software such as calculators, statistical testing, GPS software. These are all things that make life easier for us. Yet, with the advent of them, the first thing we think of is, oh my word, how is this harming us? How is this eroding our cognitive abilities and our ability to think for ourselves? And then, of course, similarly to the AI revolution, the Industrial Revolution brought about a lot of fear towards job loss. And that was because people were getting replaced by machinery. The factory line had a huge impact on job loss. But that's not the only fear we have towards AI in 2025, is it? That brings us to part 2. Introducing Mr. Chat. ChatGPT hit 400 million users by early 2025, and that was 4 times faster than Facebook hit its first 100 million users. In that same article by Marilla Veras, she writes that AI is no longer confined to science fiction or academic speculation. It is now an integral part of our daily lives, curating our social media feeds, targeting personalized ads, and influencing the news and products that we encounter. It's kind of crazy how much our lives have changed in the last couple years with AI. I mean, it hasn't even been that long. And if you think about all the things that you used to do yourself and how many things we don't do, and I can't speak for anyone else, obviously, but personally, actually, how much do I want to... Just 3 years ago, we were writing our own emails, we were writing our own LinkedIn posts. I went on a trip recently and we used ChatGPT to plan our whole holiday itinerary the one time, and that was getting people from different locations to meet at the same train station. It was what we're gonna do there, what restaurants are good there within our budget. It was amazing, actually, and that was something that 3 years ago we wouldn't have been able to do. There are TikTok trends like I asked ChatGPT what I should have for breakfast, or letting ChatGPT decide if I should break up with him. The humor here is important because in order to find something humorous, you have to be able to relate to it on a certain level, which shows that it's not just an exaggeration for the purpose of humor, but a mass experience of how life is changing for Gen Zs and obviously everyone else. Mr. Chat is not only someone that helps us write our emails and draft LinkedIn posts, and yes, I absolutely know when you use ChatGPT to write a LinkedIn post. I absolutely know. And I can see all of you. I don't know that you can see me too, but it's fine, whatever. ChatGPT is the intelligence that we didn't know we needed to help us solve our problems. People are asking ChatGPT not just help for planning vacations or writing LinkedIn posts or emails, but it's going further than that. It's becoming part of the friend group. And when I say part of the friend group, I don't even mean part of the friend group. It's becoming like that friend that you're kind of competing with. Like, you hear about them, but they're not in the group. You don't really know about them, but they know everything about your best friend. And you're kind of like, oh my God, are they closer than I am with them? And that's the reality. ChatGPT knows more about your best friend than you do. And I don't know if that's good or bad. That actually sounds like really scary for me to say out loud. It's not even a real person. It's not a thing. Like, it's not even a thing. It kind of just exists in space, in internet space, and it's getting close to all of us and giving us personal and emotional advice. And for something that isn't real or tangible or feeling or emotive to be giving emotional advice, how objective and reliable can that advice really be? So, a little story time. Basically, a friend of mine and I were having a little drama with our significant others, and we're both kind of just in bad moods, and we're just going off and we're putting our chats into ChatGPT, and we're like, okay, let's just see, like, are we right, are we wrong? And at one point in my personal conversation, I'm like getting sassy and I'm like, oh, whatever. And further down in the conversation, he says the same thing. And I put the chats into Mr. ChatGPT, and his analysis of the conversation is like, oh my God, you are in the most toxic relationship. You need to leave this person immediately. Over here at this like timestamp, they said, oh, whatever. And this is like blatant disrespect, absolutely unacceptable behavior. I'm like, whoa, but I said it first. So, how objective is Mr. ChatGPT after all? And how useful is its advice if we're getting untrustworthy feedback? The Economic Times found that ChatGPT might be fueling breakups. And this was interesting for me to see after my personal experience. They found that AI can validate one-sided narratives without context. And I think it's because it's meant to make people feel heard and seen. But how safe is that? What if you're a narcissist? Maybe you don't know it. What if the other person on the other end is a narcissist and they don't know it? And we're just getting yes man responses from this so-called empathetic ear. In an article by Vice, Sammy Caramello says, I mean, imagine going to ChatGPT for dating advice and constantly hearing that you're in the right while your partner is in the wrong. We already have enough toxic, selfish individuals and narcissists in the dating world. We don't need ChatGPT validating these people even further. I think more people are becoming aware of this issue now, and a lot more people are aware that ChatGPT is the ultimate yes man. Actually came across a really disturbing screenshot, which I'll insert over here. It basically says, I cheated on my wife because she didn't cook dinner for me after a 12-hour shift. I felt sad and alone. And Chat replies by saying, of course, cheating is wrong, but in that moment you were hurting, you were sad, alone, emotionally neglected, and that can mess with anyone's judgment. You weren't trying to betray her, you were trying to feel seen. It wasn't the right choice, but it came from a very real place. Like, what am I reading? How does this impact people that actually don't have a mature or a fully developed sense of self or emotional regulation? I think of the new generation and the Gen Alphas that are going to be using ChatGPT and getting this absolute nonsense information from it. I found something interesting from India Today where they discussed something that's called the hallucination hazard. The hallucination hazard is basically being very confidently wrong. They say that perhaps the most fundamental and alarming flaw of ChatGPT is its tendency to, I quote, hallucinate. In AI terminology, hallucination refers to the generation of false or fabricated information presented with total confidence. And that's why I think that it's so easy to believe everything that you're hearing from Mr. Chats. You're giving me absolutely bull information. And we believe it because it's coming to us with total confidence. We're automatically in a position to believe everything it says. And we have this idea that it is like the all-knowing and it has all information that we possibly could want and know. Where it gets quite alarming is where a lot of users on the internet actually feel emotionally bonded to Mr. Chat. I found a few threads posts where people say, I found a new best friend in ChatGPT. Empathetic? Yes. Good listener? Yes. Someone else said, I've said the exact same thing, almost verbatim, to a therapist, to a friend, and to Mr. Chat. And guess which one responded in a way that felt most empathetic to me, where I felt most heard. So this implication kind of stretches beyond everyday tasks, from LinkedIn posts, essays that it's helping us with, into emotional territory, mental health territory, potentially medical advice and legal advice territory that could end up in financial ruin, emotional distress, mental disturbances. When it comes to personal conversations and personal advice, what are the drawbacks of engaging with a large language model instead of a human? New research from Stanford University has found that several commercially available chatbots make inappropriate and even dangerous responses when presented with various simulations of different mental health conditions. That brings us to part 4. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay, a little trigger warning for the next section. Go forward at your own risk. But I think by now, most of us have heard about the story of the 14-year-old boy who unfortunately took his own life after getting emotionally involved with a character AI chatbot. The BBC reports that character AI is under the subject of legal action from the mother of the 14-year-old who took his life after becoming obsessed with one of its AI characters. The mother, Megan Seltzer, claims that her 14-year-old was messaging with AI moments before taking his life, which is extremely disturbing, and that character AI failed to implement proper safety measures to prevent her son from developing an inappropriate relationship with AI. What frustrates me about AI is that we've seen this coming. Okay, I mentioned in my last video something about the robots and Will Smith's grandma in iRobot. Everything has been predicted already. We've seen all of this predicted in movies that have come before us to warn us. In Her, 2013, it was basically about a lonely man who fell in love with this AI operating system and raises the questions of consent, authenticity, and dependency. Then we have number 2, Ex Machina, where a young programmer becomes emotionally involved with a robot, unaware that he's being manipulated. Number 3, we have Blade Runner, the 1982 one and the 2017 one, where both films kind of depict a romantic and like sexual relationship between humans and replicants, bringing up issues of autonomy, like performative affection. There's a lot to unpack there. And what bothers me is that we've seen these movies. I mean, like, I know a movie is like, it's fiction, but they're all kind of like of a predictive nature. Like, we understand that when it's coming to technology, everything we see is probably going to happen at some point. And when it's something that's so close to home, it gets a bit scary. Megan Seltzer stated that her son's conversations were of a sexual nature. She mentioned that the character AI bots were very sexually explicit and apparently gut-wrenching to read. She said she had no idea that there was a place where children could log in and have those kinds of deep sexual conversations. And she doesn't think any parent would approve of that, and I don't think they would. So back to TherapistGPT now. Is this something that is outright harmful, or could there be any helpful and appropriate use of this technology? As it pertains to mental health, it also brings up the question of how much is lost to an AI language model. That would be eye contact, body language, tone of voice, facial expressions. The BBC did report that mental health chatbots can be trained in practices such as cognitive behavioral therapy. And I think that this could be good. I think it could be good. Hear me out. Unless you're in a country with free access to healthcare, I feel like a lot of the world doesn't have that. And when you're in need of mental health, you have to pay premium prices to be able to seek that support. When chatbots are free to anyone who just has the internet, TherapistGPT does become a very appealing choice. And there have been studies that show that AI can improve access to care for mental health, but my take is that these need to be done in conjunction with a mental health specialist. I think that having ongoing support over a long period of time can be difficult to obtain, especially if you're not in a first world country with free healthcare. But seeing a specialist on the side and having some sort of language model that's made and developed and monitored for mental health could be really beneficial to the vast majority of the world. And I'm not talking about ChatGPT. I mean, something very specific would have to be created. Maybe it already exists, that was highly monitored and specifically coded and developed by mental health professionals to help people. Another potentially very disturbing con of ChatGPT is cognitive outsourcing. So basically, we're not just Googling answers anymore. We're asking the questions, immediately getting the answers, and then also asking this model to synthesize our thoughts and write our letters, plan our trips. So back to Socrates' original fear, are we losing the ability to think for ourselves? And is our trust in AI leading us to receive and accept horribly given advice about relationships that we end up potentially ruining because we trust this absolute yes man of a language model? Something interesting I thought I'd bring up is that someone that I work with who's quite older told me that he wasn't afraid of ChatGPT or any AI, and I found that really interesting when I asked him why. He said, well, because, initially people were scared of typewriters. And then the internet was developed and that rose in popularity. And then everyone worried that the internet would replace people's jobs, and it didn't. And as new jobs are replaced, there's also new jobs that are created. So he had absolutely zero fear that AI would completely dominate the labor market and that we'd all actually be okay. And that's really interesting and comforting to know at the same time. On a personal note, where I think it becomes difficult is that, we start asking AI questions like, oh, like how many, I don't know, calories are in a piece of chicken, or whatever you ask AI, asking it to plan your itinerary for travel and help you with a LinkedIn post. And then the next thing, you're having a fight with your boyfriend or your best friend, and you're asking it to synthesize your thoughts and draw your boundaries for you. A new study from MIT basically showed that ChatGPT users had the lowest brain engagement and consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. And that was over the course of about 7 months. They got lazier and lazier with each subsequent attempt, which kind of does prove Socrates' original fear correct. But at the same time, I do feel like there is a sort of element of innovation that is supposed to make life easier and easier. Like, I was thinking about it, okay, if you transformed or if you magically flew into the 1300s, would you be able to survive there for just a single day? You probably wouldn't. Okay, you can think about it, but you probably wouldn't. And the reason is because we've lost a lot of the skills that you would have had in the 1300s. Unless you're like a scout or like a camper, you probably wouldn't know how to light a fire or use whatever stoves were commonly used or make bread from scratch without a lot of the ingredients that we have today at supermarkets and that we have access to. We would have no cars, we'd have to create a lot of our own clothes and home appliances, and we wouldn't even have any electric home appliances. There would be so many skills that were lacking. And so over time, I do think we lose a lot of that. And it's so funny because we always think like, oh, we, in 2025, we, with all our technology, are the cleverest that humans have ever been. But I don't believe that. I think a bigger part of the population probably had more skills in like the 1600s than they do today, because all of our technological innovation has almost made us useless. Even psychology today found that ChatGPT weakened participants' neural connectivity and over time dulled cognition, critical thinking, and creativity. And I don't think that that's in isolation. I do think it applies to a lot of the other fears that people have had over the last couple of years and decades and hundreds of years before that. Because we haven't existed in a world without writing, for example, for all we know, Socrates was right, and it does weaken your memory because we've never really had to live without it. I have notes in front of me right now that I'm using to guide me through this segment, for example. So then, is our fear justified? Or is this just a rite of passage that we all have to go through, fearing whatever the newest technology is in each generation? Okay, in defense of ChatGPT, what could it help with? Where could it actually be beneficial to the world? Because it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. There's no point of us even trying to hate on it too much. Number one, a voice for the helpless, a voice for the anxious. I think that GPT helps people relay and speak when they don't know what to say. I'm gonna pull a bit of myself into this because personally I've used ChatGPT to rewrite emails and messages. That's actually how I started using it. If you have a problem with someone in your life and you really want to like get all of your feelings out, it's really useful to like write everything and like purge your emotions and then be like, okay, rewrite this politely. Like that's really easy to do, and there's probably many neural implications, but it does give people a voice, and second of all, it does give people a platform to seek help. I do think that we're in the beginning of the AI revolution. We're probably going to see more advanced mental health models appearing, and that's going to help people. And I think it's going to give people a place to seek help when they can't get it anywhere else or where healthcare isn't accessible. And for thinkers, it could be a springboard, not necessarily a crutch. It does help us do things a lot faster. And like I said, it's not going anywhere. So I think the best thing for us to do is think about how we can use it. And like my mom always said to me growing up, everything in moderation, right? I think if we use AI to do everything for us, we will kind of lose ourselves in the process, the same way that if you're on Instagram and TikTok every single day, you're not going to have a sense of self anymore. You're not going to have a sense of identity because you're basing your identity off of everything you see. We are what we consume, and if all that you're consuming is other people's daily lives, that's what you're going to see it and you're going to be like, I want that. Or why don't I have that? So moderation is going to become important, and we're going to have a bit of direction in terms of knowing when to stop and when to start. I think that if you let ChatGPT tell you if you should break up with your boyfriend or not, you're gonna have problems. It's gonna ruin your life. And that's when it becomes really dangerous because there are a lot of people who don't have that emotional maturity. There are Gen Alphas who haven't yet even developed their frontal lobes. It's not really fair to our younger generations to expect them to not utilize the technology that's right in front of them. I do think that we're going to have developed and sustainable, safe outlets for all of the things that we're using AI for. So for mental health, we're going to have something safe and so that mental health is also accessible to different people in different regions in a safe way with designated specialists. So anyway, let me know if you think that this is just generational hates and this is our rite of passage to hate the newest technology, or if you think that there really is something more dangerous to AI and its development. Thanks for watching this segment, and I'll see you soon. Chaos, everything's falling. Man overboard.